Hi, I'm Michael Lloyd White, and I'm here to talk to you about World Kindness USA. And you're probably asking yourself, why is there a guy with an Australian accent talking to me about World Kindness USA? I'll tell you why. It's because I've been involved with World Kindness for the last 10 years, and I'm just a dad, but I got tapped on the shoulder, and next thing I know, I'm the Secretary General of the global body. That's a story for another time. But to give you a little bit of background about World Kindness, the World Kindness movement, it got its roots back in 1963 in Japan, when Japan was faced with hosting the Olympics and its former wartime enemies were coming to its shores. That's confronting for any government, but they hooked onto the idea that kindness could be the key. So they placed kindness on the national agenda, created a campaign, and they rebooted the culture of Japan. Not to mention the Marshall Plan from the US was pretty influential as well. But if kindness in fact had a part to play in that reconciliation, it needs to be talked about. 30 years went by, more than 30 years went by, and the next thing you know, Japan has invited the rest of the world to come together for a conference in Tokyo in 1997. This is after the first Gulf War, but before the second. And this was to form a coalition of the goodwilling. This is not a small enterprise, guys. This is significant. It's been recognized by heads of state. Now, it was managed by the Japanese government for the first 5 years, and then for the next 9 years, it was managed by the Singaporean government. But in 2012, the management, the secretariat, went to the West, went to Australia and to a not-for-profit, not a government body. So we started thinking outside the box, wanting to remember that we needed to protect kindness from the influences of politics and religion and commercial interests, particularly in the 90s. But that kind of created an echo chamber. And the way we got around that was we created the opportunity to endorse independent national bodies. And within a short time, we had World Kindness China engaged. It just so happened our Prime Minister at the time was the only world leader, Western world leader, that spoke fluent Mandarin. And he was kind enough during the election campaign to give us a letter of support to present to the Chinese people. And as a result, China now has kindness in their curriculum. And guess where that was developed? The largest education body in the world, the Chinese Ministry of Education, has got kindness curriculum that was developed in Denver. I know, right? But this is what's happening. Things all around the world. Japan's been using kindness as a way to deal with depression. It has one of the highest depression rates on the planet. So does Seoul. Seoul's been using it to address issues with suicide. In Australia, we initially used it for addressing bystander behaviour in situations of bullying. But it's got far more reach in a world that has become all about self. Now, here's the thing. If I asked you what is the most successful campaign in the world, it's not ours, clearly. But the most successful campaign in the world, and if we were workshopping this, I'd be writing up on the whiteboard and telling you this, and you'd be telling me this. In fact, one day, one lady yelled out, Tupperware. Okay, Tupperware. So I've written Tupperware up there. But when you think about the most successful campaign in the world, it's in the 24/7 news cycle. And it engages everybody. It even captures those people who would otherwise oppose it. So what campaign has been doing this for years? And that is the campaign of fear and hate. You know what I'm talking about. It's in the 24/7 news cycle, and it even engages people who would oppose it. They become angry, they become become fearful, they become hateful. They stop listening to the content and they start focusing on the appearance of the messenger. And that messenger, it doesn't matter what race they are or what gender they are or what sexual preference they have or what religion or politics, it doesn't matter. Because the only thing that doesn't discriminate is discrimination. We'll even discriminate on zip codes. And if you live in the same zip code, they'll be looking at the badge on your car, the label on your clothing, or the street you live in, or the school your children go to. Because when you're fearful, we look for our tribes. And that's dangerous. So it's time to look at what makes that campaign so successful. And if we break it down, reconstruct it, and get to its core, the very basis of this, it doesn't have a lot of infrastructure, it doesn't have a fundraising arm, it doesn't really get a whole lot of hierarchy. It's about a couple of people coming together and getting inspired, and maybe they download some stuff from the internet, a how-to video. Maybe they have some tools of engagement. Maybe there's a phone call. But they get inspired to go out and do something epic in the community. So let's acknowledge that this campaign of creating these cells has been successful. And despite the billions of dollars that we've put into trying to fight it, we're not winning. No. So let's borrow that business model. But we can improve it because it's got two flaws. One, you've got to do it stealthily, covertly. And two, you only get to do it once. But if we did it and we changed the agenda from fear and hate and terror to kindness, love and compassion, and we had the support of the city, now we're cooking with gas. Now we've got something that we can start to go out with and probably do much better. But we need to be inspired and we need to influence and we need to engage. Now, if we can do these things, because we can't do it alone. We can't do it alone. And the US, it's time to come together. I think we've hit a tipping point. You guys are a fantastic influence, and World Kindness USA is being designed to be a national platform for collaboration based on a foundation of kindness. Not the hearts and flowers and sugar and spice and all things nice, but the courage to be kind, the courage to speak up and ask, is this the best we can be? The courage to reach out to somebody, and even if they're not good for your personal brand, you invite them in anyway. And I think we spend too much time talking about our personal brands or our company brands. And to be honest, the first company that says we will not protect our brand over and above you, they're on a winner. So all you've got to do is ask the Catholic Church, how did that work out for them? But we've got some tools of engagement of our own. I want to talk to you about the tools of engagement. I want to talk to you about the World Kindness Card. Now, this is not your ordinary kindness card. It was developed back in 2012 and launched at a scholarship dinner at the Sydney University. Now, these cards have been in circulation now for 5-6 years. And some of the stories that have been collected on these cards, because you'll notice each card's got a number, a unique identifier. And those numbers are able to be registered on the website to go in and actually show you where the card has been because it's tracked on Google Maps. Not only does it show you how many miles it's travelled, it shows you every act of kindness that's been recorded by previous recipients. So I would say to you, I was given something, I was told to hold on to it, but not to keep it. I was told to, at an appropriate time, if I either received or witnessed an act of kindness, to find that someone deserving and to acknowledge them, to recognise them for their good deed. Now, all I'm asking them to do is to go onto the website, enter that number, and see all the stories collected. But that night there'll be a new entry, and that is the story that I'm going to record about them. Now don't worry, because I want you to hold on to it, but not to keep it. At an appropriate time, when you witness an act of kindness or find someone deserving, pass it on. And don't worry about passing it on. The card will stay in touch with you. Every time there is a new story entered, every previous recipient that's ever held this card in their hand will receive an email. And that email will have a link to take them back to the card, showing them the exact location where the card is, how many miles it's travelled, and the most recent act of kindness that's been captured. Now, I've said that thousands and thousands of cards have been registered over the years, but I'm going to tell you one story. And I'd given a card to a friend of mine, and it sat in his wallet for like 2 years. And my friend had a history. He was in the army, and during his time in the forces, he was in the Armed Forces water polo team, the national team. And in the day, when he was young and fit, they did well. But time has passed. He's now a dad, and he's going through the midlife crisis of putting a baby seat into the back of his beast, his cherished beast. And the phone rings, and he gets a phone call from an old army buddy and says, we're getting the band back together. He goes, what do you mean we're getting the band back together? Well, there's a Masters tournament on, and we just scrape in. Are you up for it? He goes, when is it? It's next week. He goes, are you kidding? Long story short, they win. Now in Australia, when men celebrate, they like to go, and it usually involves beer. So they went out and had a beer. They had another one, and by the third beer, the filters begin to slide. The volume goes up, and maybe there's an F-bomb dropped. But a complaint is made. And the manager comes up from downstairs, and he sees the young girl working behind the bar. Her name's Sarah. And he says, Sarah, look, don't worry about these bozos. We're going to kick them out in about 5 or 10 minutes. I've just got to take care of something downstairs. We've got a leaking keg or something. Now, Sarah's a 19-year-old that goes to university. She's working part-time. She doesn't need any drama. She doesn't need to get involved. The boss has got this. But Sarah decides to go up and see these guys and have a quiet word to them. And she says to them, listen guys, you're about to get kicked out of here, but if you promise me you'll pull your head in, you'll tone it down, you'll watch your language, I'll put a good word in for you to the boss. And they were embarrassed. They were very embarrassed and very apologetic. And the rest of the night passed, closing time came, incident free. They kept their promise and they got to stay. Now, as they were leaving, they gathered in a bit of a huddle. And my friend opened his wallet and he pulled out this card. And they got together and they registered a story. And he walked up to Sarah, approached Sarah while she was cleaning the bar and said, Sarah, look, what you did for us tonight was important to us because we're not normally like that. We're all dads, but we don't get together very often. Today was a big day and we have a bit of a history and we have a lot of memories, but today we got to make a good one. And that probably wouldn't have been as good had you not intervened. And the worst thing that could have happened is to leave today on a sour note. But because you approached us, because of your kindness and giving us a second chance, we want to acknowledge you. He presented the card. He said, I was given something. I was told to hold on to it, but not to keep it. I was told to, at appropriate time, if I found someone deserving, to acknowledge them and pass it on. I think that appropriate time is now, and that someone deserving is you, Sarah. And he passed the card across the bar. And she picked it up and she looked at it, and she was quite touched. The guys gathered and went home, as did Sarah. Now, I got an email from the card because I'd registered the card. And 2 weeks later, I get another email. Same card number. This time, though, the story is being written by Sarah. And she says, "Hi, just registering my card, but before I pass it on, I want to acknowledge the gentleman that gave me the card. Because there's no way they could have known that was my last day at work. There's no way they could have known how I've been travelling lately. And there's no way they could have known that when I was to go home, I'd already planned for that to be my last day, period. But on receiving this little card, it gave me a sense of hope." Sarah volunteers for us now. And the power in that story, I think, tells us volumes about seeing the unseen, about taking our blinkers off. We can be having a great time with our friends and missing all the things that are happening outside of our circle. But when you've got kindness on your agenda, your radar increases, your bandwidth increases, and you begin to see the unseen. This is what this card is all about. And the more cards that are out there in the hands of people that have got kindness on their radar, the more chance we have of raising awareness. So I encourage you to go to worldkindnessusa.org and get yourself a kindness card. Thank you very much.